Hey guys, welcome. I'm back in the garage because I've just sat and filmed in the car and it's absolutely scorching in there, so I thought I'd come into the nice cool garage. Hopefully my printer won't interfere with the sound too much and you can hear me nice and clear, but I'll check that before I continue on. So today I thought I'd do a pretty quick video on 5 things you should be watching out for when buying an Evo. Generally, obviously, these are 5 things on top of your general things that you should be looking for when you go to buy a car. Number one is the obvious choice. If you're getting one with an SST box, check through the paperwork and make sure that it has been serviced. Depending on mileage will be depending on how many services it should have had. I think most people recommend between 10 and 15,000 to service them on. I reckon that's probably about right from what I've done myself. I do mine probably little over every year. I do about 10,000 miles a year roughly, although this year is probably going to be less due to the whole thing everyone's going through. But yeah, so double check, make sure the gearbox has been serviced, and also on top of that make sure it's been reteached as well, and reteached correctly. Because if it's not been reteached, you'll be getting slippage in the clutch packs and all sorts of other problems, and that can cause later on down the line you can just wear your clutch packs out. And I think that's where a lot of people have on forums and stuff have had bad luck, because obviously the cars were quite new, the technology was quite new, not everyone had access to the software. I would recommend reteaching it definitely every time you change the oil, or if you've gone on track or anything like that on the car and you've really gave it some for number 2, I would say the AYC pump. It's a common issue with them, where it's located behind the rear wheel. It's prone to basically get a lot of road grime and crap from the roads, and it gets into all the seals and it starts rusting, and you get no ender issues, leaks and everything else. So checking to see if that's been serviced, that's great. Thumbs up definitely if it has been, especially if it's within the year or 2 years. If it's any longer than that, then I'd just give it a visual check underneath the car if you can, just see if it's looks in good nick still and there's no massive rushed areas or anything. Relocating to the boot like some people are doing, and I'm maybe planning on doing that myself. Then obviously that's the bonus, because generally it's all protected and nice and neatly in the boot, then with a little cover over it, so you shouldn't need to worry about it. So number 3 is rust. It can be, as much as the cars can be looked after very well, some cars aren't looked after as well. So obviously the ones like myself that drive them through the winter years, rust can become an issue quite quickly. Be vigilant, look under the car, get on your hands and knees, get dirty, get grimy, because you're going to do getting an Evo anyway, so you may as well start as you need to go on. So get under the car, have a good look around, check all the subframes, all the main chassis rails, stuff like that, making sure down the door seals, around the arch liners, down the sills, everything like that, usual common spots. Just give it a good look. For the front end, if you can peek, if it has the plastic guard, which it should do, have a peek around that if you can. Usually you can see through a couple of vents and that, and pull it away to kind of look through and peek through, or look through a bit of the bumper. You can see a bit of peek of the engine. Just check to see if looks like it's been covered up for all its life, because a lot of people, with the amount of thousands and million and one clips that it takes to take off, a lot of people don't put it back on because they think, oh, I'll do it later, and then they don't end up doing it. And obviously, lo and behold, a winter comes, they don't really want to go out in the winter times to put on a million and one clips, so they just leave it off, and obviously that can start causing issues, giving you dry pulley wheels and all sorts of other squeaky noises under your car, which is not good for it. So that's the one to look out for. 4 is suspension and brakes. Suspension wise, they are prone to get suspension knock while driving slow on bumpy roads or driving fast, and obviously catching the odd bump or pothole, you can tend to hear it. A little bit of oil down the shock sometimes quietens it down and makes it go away, but it will probably come back. It's nothing, I wouldn't say it's nothing major unless it gets really loud and really bad. but most of you guys are probably putting on a set of coilovers or something like that anyway. But obviously you don't want to be doing that, so you just forked out all the money for the car. Like myself, I'm only just starting modding mine now. I've had it a year. I found all the grenolins, which aren't any, luckily. I've serviced what I've needed to service, everything else. I'm confident with the car, that the car's fine at 100%. So obviously I know when I'm modding it, I know that if something happens to the car, I know it's the mod that I put on rather than anything else. As for brakes, you can visually see them quite nicely behind the wheels. They're nice and massive discs, massive calipers. Just generally look at the condition of the calipers and that, you can get a sense of how well the car's been looked after too, because a lot of people overlook it. And make sure there's no deep pitting grooves or anything like that on the discs, because you don't want to replace the discs on these cars, because if you're going to buy good quality ones, they are expensive. They will set you back a good few £100. Number 5, like with any car, service history. For Evos, for an Evo guy that's buying one, he's looking at probably keeping it for the rest of its life if possible. Stamps and everything aren't as important. Mainly give it a good look through all the paperwork. If you want to do that before you purchase the car, I would recommend it. Give it a good look through, find out what he's been buying for the car, what he's replaced on the car, and stuff like that. Even to what brand of oil he's been putting, making sure he's not putting any crappy Tesco stuff, although Tesco stuff's probably alright for your lawnmower and stuff like that, but I wouldn't probably put it in any decent sports car for that matter. But yeah, just generally give it a good look over. Spend an hour, a cup of tea, or on a Sunday after your Sunday dinner, you're just sitting all bloated after your Sunday dinner, have a good look through it, because that'll give you an inkling on issues that the car's had and everything else. Quick side notes, obviously when looking to buy a car, I definitely recommend getting an app or something like that you can put the registration in, and it'll give you all the previous history of miles it's done, recent MOTs, what they've failed on, the advisories, making sure, because then you can actually double check to make sure they've been fixed, and so on and so forth. It's definitely a must go. There's plenty of free ones out there. There's ones that are a few pounds, and even then are still worth it, a few quid. Can't go wrong when you spend thousands on a car like an Evo. So, I've rambled on enough. Hope you found the video interesting and educational. If you're going to buy an Evo and you're not sure about something, or you want a bit more info, then be sure to comment below. Hit me up on the Instagram, anything like that. I'm more than welcome.